Hello, everyone, and welcome to Molehill Mountain, episode 79. Andrew Eisen here, along with Zachary Knight. Hello, Zachary.
Hello, Andrew.
Where's your
Hello,
hat,
gas can
Zachary?
on fire. I wasn't wearing it. Here, let me put on one.
They were like, "Who is this other guy? Do we have a new host?" Oh, it's Zachary. There we go.
Is that better?
That's not a ball cap.
No, I was at my grandparents' house. They were having a family get together, and I wasn't wearing a ball cap, and then I just forgot to put one on. I don't have one in my office, I don't think, but I did have my nice little Boba Fett beanie up here. So
Nice.
yeah.
All right.
But yeah, it is weird to see me without a hat because I always wear one on the podcast.
Yeah. Matthew's asking us what our goities are. Game of the year.
Yeah.
That's a great question. We might have to save that for next week because I'd like to give that a little more than 2 seconds.
Yeah,
thought.
I would have to give that a little thought. But of course, I haven't played a whole lot of games, and it's like all the games that I did play this year were games that weren't released this year.
That's true. I think my game of the year, if it just off the top of my head, I might go super easy and say Mario Odyssey because it's great but it's like one of the most recent games I played. The beta for Monster Hunter World. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I've been going through a lot of. I've been catching up on my Sony games, so it's quite possible that my game of the year might not have been a game that released this year.
Yeah.
And what if I played? Well, that actually did. L.A. Noire, the remastered edition, which I didn't play. But what if that was my game of the year? It came out 7 years ago. What if Skyrim on the Switch? Would that count? So I think if Zachary and I do like next week talk about our game of the year, it might be game of last year that we played last year did not necessarily release that year, but we played it that year, so that's our game of that year.
That's pretty much how it would end up being. It's just because honestly, I don't play very many new releases ever, and that's just my thing. I don't buy a whole lot of games, and when I do buy them, they're all almost always discounted. So
yeah,
and that's because they've been out for a couple of years.
Yeah, Matthew says Nier Automata is game of the year, and I would definitely say
pretty good.
I would say it's my demo of the year. And speaking of demos, I've downloaded every single demo there is
for the
except
Switch,
Just Dance 2018 because I don't care.
Oh, you don't want to play Just Dance?
No, I don't want to play Just Dance.
My kids like Just Dance, and I've got one copy of it for the PlayStation 3, and it uses the Move controllers, and that's the only copy I need because seriously, all you're buying is new songs, and I just don't care that much. It has Ghostbusters on there. I think they're happy, so
there you go. Believe it or not, I actually can dance, not particularly well, but I can do it. It probably comes from my singing. I just have natural rhythm and good control over movement. But I always describe my dancing as if an alien programmed a robot to mimic human dancing. That's me dancing. I mean, it's technically correct, but there's no soul in it.
I just can't dance. I have terrible rhythm, and so I can't keep up. Like I've taken, I've done a couple of free swing and samba lessons, and I can do the basic steps, but once you get beyond the basic steps, I'm lost.
So I also don't like get on the dance floor and boogie. I don't enjoy that at all. If I'm going to dance, it better be choreographed. Otherwise, I'm not going to bother. So I did take my Switch on the plane, and I was fine. I mean, it's fine. Gave me something to do on a 4-hour flight. But
did you play it in handheld mode, or did you take the grip and
I did I did take the grip, but I played it like this with the Joy-Con attached to the side because um I may have done it a different way if I were flying first class or something, but since I was flying coach on Southwest Airlines, about this is the best I could manage.
Yeah, that's true.
There's just it was killing my neck because I'm kind of like this, and because I'm crushed between people.
Yeah,
Uh, you know,
that's understandable.
I'm
Yeah,
a broader gentleman, and if I'm sitting between people who are themselves broader than even I am, it can't even hit the armrest, so I have to have my shoulders hunched forward for 4 solid hours. And I have this switch up in my it's making me uncomfortable just thinking about it. But I'm very uh particular about my toys, and I don't want to damage my Switch. Uh, but I didn't want to spend however much as a carrying case. So I
yeah,
figured out a perfect carrying case for the Switch. Just one of these padded mailing envelopes. It just fits in there
nice.
perfectly. Just put it in here. It works great. It's cheap. I
Yeah,
this was probably this is just like a video game I bought from Amazon. I don't even remember which one. But so I have every demo available from the eShop on here. And it was kind of a terrible flight because it's a plane and planes are terrible. I have a friend who just moved to South Korea. I don't know how she stood the. I don't think I could do it because it's a
yeah.
really long plane ride. I don't want
Oh
to do
yeah.
it.
Well,
But
I took a flight to England, and that was long and unbearable. But luckily, it was overnight, and well, I guess as overnight as you could be flying east. But yeah,
yeah, but none of these demos did it for me, and I'm wondering if it's because I was just miserable and uncomfortable on the plane, or if these just aren't very good. There's
yeah.
a what's this called? Rudy McCull Dark Witch music episode, something like that. It's just hard to read on this little screen. It's a rhythm game. It's okay. The music isn't great. It's got kind of a unique
Yeah.
um, you have a character on one side of the screen and a character on the other side of the screen, and the character on this side of the screen is like shooting fireballs and stuff at you, and you have to tap the button in time to punch the fireballs. What amazes me is that there was
Okay.
like a several minute cutscene with this great story. It's a rhythm game. Does Rhythm Heaven
Huh.
need a huge story? No, it's just a rhythm game, and it's okay. I played Max: The Curse of Brotherhood, which is essentially the setup of Labyrinth, where my baby brother sucks. I wish the Goblin King would take him away. And then the Goblin reaches in a portal and yanks his brother through a portal. He goes, "No, I didn't mean it." Chases after him, and the game is just not fun. There's nothing to do. It seems to be a, almost like a runner. You're just
Hmm.
running from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen and jumping over obstacles. It's just not very well done. It's not. It
Yeah.
doesn't flow very well. It's not fun. I like the style of it. I like the look of it. I think it's very attractive. I just didn't find it fun to play. And again, it may be because I was uncomfortable and in a bad mood. There's
Yeah.
Embers of Mirim, which is really unique in that you play a wolf bat dog thing.
A wolf
Uh,
bat dog. Nice.
it's a wolf with wings, I guess, and a weird bat-like face. Um, and the gimmick of this game is you can split yourself into little green and a purple energy ball, uh, which can be manipulated and moved around the screen with the right and left and right sticks.
Hmm.
And you need to do this to get through color-coded barriers that the wolf can't pass through. So you split into two balls, and you basically are using the right analog sticks to move these balls through little paths. And it's an interesting mechanic,
Hmm.
and there's some. I think some of the pathing is well done. There's a lot of thought that went into the level design. It's just not fun.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy doing it. I'm like I don't want to individually move these little balls down paths, so I gave up on that one. Robonauts was just you're on a planetoid like in Super Mario Galaxy, and so it's 2D, but you just run around a planetoid and shoot little robots standing on the planetoid, and then you jump up to the next planetoid and do it again. maybe just a bad demo. I didn't find it very
Yeah.
fun. And then there's Slime San, which at this point I was like, I'm so tired. And I think I gave this one like a solid minute and then got tired of it, turned it off.
Whole
It
minute.
seems to be kind of like a um, cave spelunker game. It
Yeah.
seems kind of similar to Super Meat Boy. And you're a slime and you can kind of phase through slime gates and you just jump from platform to platform and try not to die. It's I don't know, it didn't do it for me. Uh, I played the Lost Sphere demo, which is I think Tokyo RPG Factory. The same people are doing um, Project Octopath Traveler, which I really enjoyed. I didn't really like this demo. And I can't remember why because I played it on the way out there, so it's been like 2 weeks. Um, I think maybe one of the biggest problem is the way this demo works is they drop you in just in the middle of the game. All your characters are level 18, so you have no idea who anyone is or what anyone's doing. You have all these items and spells and moves and stuff that you've never been introduced to, so eh, you you're like, I don't know what's going on. I don't know what we're doing, what the goal is, why we should care, and I'm lost because you just dropped me into the middle of a RPG. So, yeah, but Super Mario Odyssey is still good.
Well, that's
So,
good.
why didn't
Glad.
I do moon hunting in Mario on the flight? Because I found all the moons long before I got on the plane. I'm done with Super Mario. Although I did turn it on briefly to show it off for my mom because she wanted to see it. But I mean, I could just grind out coins for 2 hours to buy more moons, but that's boring, and I don't want to do that. So,
Okay.
hi, Warren. Uh, so, what have you been up to?
Well, let's
How
see.
was your Christmas?
Christmas was good. We had a lot of fun. I got if I can not make a mess. I got Star Wars Risk. I haven't actually played it yet, but it's not quite like regular Risk
I was just trying to
because
think of how exactly that would work.
yeah, I was expecting it to be pretty much regular Risk, but it's not quite. But I haven't actually played it yet, so I don't know. But like, this is part of the game board. Um,
Hmm.
Trying not to get glare. We meant to play it earlier this week, but and these are
It was
little
hard to
things.
tell. Is that the window out of the Emperor's throne room? Is that what
That's what
that
it
is?
looks like, or a Tie Fighter or something. I don't
Oh,
know, but it's like these go on the edges. So yeah, it's a pretty much a Tie
so a
Fighter,
TIE
I
fighter window.
guess.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so I'm looking forward to playing it. Just haven't had a chance to actually sit down and play. But we also got another board game for the kids, and that one is my son, my oldest. He really likes a book series called Diary of a Wimpy Kid, and
Now a feature-length movie.
yeah, yeah. There's two movies
Oh, there's
out.
two. Okay. Oh, good.
Yeah, and so we found a board game based off of it at Goodwill for $1.50 or something like that, and we're like we checked it out. It was missing like two cards, but that wasn't that big of a deal, um, because so we went ahead and bought it and we played it, and it was actually a really fun game. Are you familiar with Cranium?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it
Not the rule
plays.
set, but familiar of its
Yeah.
existence.
Okay. Well, Cranium is a game where um, you play it, and there's four sets of instruction cards. Like there's uh, like Pictionary, charades, uh, trivia, and some other things that you can do, and uh, and and this Diary of a Wimpy Kid was pretty much the same thing, except more not really quiz related, but more get to know you type questions. So,
Hmm.
like one group of cards is you ask a question, everybody writes down a yes or no to that question, and then you have to guess what everybody whether everybody said yes or no. So, like, and one of the questions was you know have you ever stayed up till midnight doing homework, and everybody has to write yes or no, and you guess yes or no to everybody. And and then another one is it asks a question like, what's your favorite animal, for an example, and everybody writes down their favorite animal, and then all those answers get mixed up, and the player next to the person whose turn it is he reads the answers, and then the person whose turn it is has to guess which other player wrote that answer. And then there's some charade stuff too. It's like, and this one was a lot of fun. The kids loved it, and we had a lot of fun with it. Was that you draw a card, or the player after you draws a card, and on it has like an adverb or an adjective. I think it's mostly adverbs, but the player, the person whose turn it is, gives an action, just picks an action, out of their head, and then the other players have to act out that action using that adverb. And so, like, one of them was loudly, and then the player said, my daughter, she said, doing homework, and so everybody was trying to act out doing homework loudly, and without actually saying anything, because it was charades. And so we had a lot of fun playing this game. We like it. It's a family favorite. Otherwise, let's see, what else did I get? My wife has been giving me hints. I don't know if you saw this on Twitter or Facebook, but earlier this year, I think for Father's Day, I got this book. It's a notebook with a bunch of story prompts in it. So like at the top of the page, here's one that says, write the story political machinations. Include the following in your story: appointment, dangerous cost, empire, kitten, mug, converter, essence, tennis, and poke. So that one's interesting. She got me that one earlier this year. And then for Christmas, I got, this is just a empty notebook, keep calm and write on. So
right on.
Yeah. And then she got me another writing prompt book. This one's 400 writing prompts. And these ones says, create 10 all new funny scratch and sniff stickers. Describe the image and smells. So this one isn't really writing stories or anything. It's just getting the creative juices flowing type thing. And this one I'm actually excited about, because this is one of the things I have a little difficulty with in writing is writing descriptions that actually feel right, sound right, read right, whatever you want to say. And so hopefully this one will actually help me in that aspect. But yeah, so basically she's telling me I need to write more, and that's something I've been wanting to do for years, is actually write a novel or two. And so hopefully this year I can do that.
I had an idea for a story when I was in high school, and I started writing it, and I was never like, I'm going to write the great American novel, aha. And I wrote a draft, and I outlined it, and then I wrote a chapter, and I haven't written any more of it since I think college, but I wrote on that. I wrote the same 4 chapters, and I rewrote them for probably 7 years. And the problem is I'd write I'd write like 4 chapters, and I'd go back and I'd think about it, and my writing would steadily improve. And so I'd go back to it and go, well, this is garbage. And I'd have to rewrite it again. And that just kept going on and on for like 7 years, until I was about a year into college, and I was reading it and rewriting it again. And I realized, okay, the writing is now pretty solid. I'm a decent writer now, so that's nice. The problem is the story sucks, because I wrote it when I was like 15.
Yeah.
So it's very written by a 15-year-old. It's really stupid. So I would have to totally rewrite that one from scratch, although I do have a soft spot for that.
Yeah. Well, and me, I've got a lot of story ideas. like a lot of them are ideas that I thought of for games,
Hmm.
uh, way back when. And looking back, I'm like, I'm probably never going to get around to making these games, but a lot of these ideas would make really good stories. At least I would think, pretty good novels. And then I've had some other story ideas that I've thought up since then. Like I started writing a book. While I was in England, and then I wrote out the full outline of it during college, and then that's about as far as I got. So I like because I wrote like the first 5 or 6 chapters, very rough draft, and then I outlined the rest of the story, and uh, and then that was as far as I got. I'm not sure if I want to go back to that one, just because it was one of those, it's one of those early stories that is full of all kinds of gimmicks and things that editors and stuff just completely frown upon. Um, but still, it was fun to write. I was very entertained by it, and those who read the first few chapters liked it. But again, it's one of those, like like your the story you were writing, very much a product of its time and maturity level in writing. But I've got a couple of ideas that I want to work on this year, and I would really like to get a novel done by the end of the next year,
Nice.
depending on how things go. But yeah.
So I got back from vacation late last night, and I come home and I see a FedEx box on my porch, and I look at it, and I'm glad for some reason, I'm the kind of guy who checks the label on his own mail, and I'm glad I did in this case because this wasn't mine. This was Len something who's in a different apartment, same building, different apartment number. I'm in Unit 1. This was Unit 11, so close,
Yeah.
just on the opposite end of the building. So, Matthew, yes, we have, and we will be talking about that later tonight. So, um, wait for it. I'm putting it off because I don't want to talk about it because it upsets me.
Yeah, it's a upsetting story, but yeah.
Yeah.
So the package.
Package. So I have a FedEx package. It's not mine. It's looking at the delivery label. It's been sitting on my porch since December 22nd. So I'm thinking probably someone's Christmas present. But it's 11 o'clock at night, so I will deliver it in the morning. So I got up this morning, went to the gym, because I didn't think anyone needed me knocking on their door that early. Came back, and about 9:30, 10 o'clock, about 10 o'clock, I go over to my neighbor, knock on the door. I say, "Are you Len?" He goes, "Yeah." I say, "Merry Christmas," and I give him the FedEx box. And he was like, "Oh my gosh, where was it? How do you?" I'm like, "I'm Unit 1. You're Unit 11." So they just delivered it to the wrong door. He's like, "Oh, I've been on the phone with FedEx for a week, and I had 4 incidents reports, and my niece was calling me, and they were trying to say, well, did you get the thing we sent you? Try not to spoil what the present was." And unfortunately, they had his niece had told him what it was literally 2 hours before I delivered the box. So maybe I should have knocked on the door last night or delivered it really early. I feel kind of bad about that. But the neat thing is this wasn't like a book or a video game. This was a picture in a custom made frame that his niece
Oh
had
wow.
made. I didn't see it, but some
They told
woodworked custom frame that she made to frame a picture of herself or the family or him or someone. And so it was a personal, irreplaceable item. And uh, his whole family was freaking out and they're like, "What have you done with it? It's irreplaceable. It's a one of a kind thing." But unfortunately, the surprise,
was a
well,
little
no
spoiled.
surprise, he knew it was a little spoiled. But
Yeah.
uh,
Well, and man, that sucks. You were
yeah.
gone for 2 weeks, so he
Yeah, and I
that
told
thing
him, I
has
said,
just been
"I'm
sitting
sorry,
on your porch for
I've been on vacation. It's been sitting on my
yeah,
porch for a week and a half. I'm so glad it didn't rain."
yeah. Oh man, that's crazy. Yeah, I didn't have any stories like that for Christmas, but
Let's
yeah,
see
my
what.
kids got lots of fun stuff. We didn't really do any. I got two video games for them. Same time I bought that Diary of a Wimpy Kid board game at Goodwill. They had Connectimals
Uh-huh.
and Connect Adventures, and those were we've got to connect, but we only have one game for it. So it's just
Connectimals are
like
just kind of There's something off-putting to me about the art style.
yeah.
It's
So,
creepy. My
but
Little
I went
Pony is
ahead and
cute. Connectables are just off,
yeah.
unsettling.
Yeah, so I went ahead and got those because we've got to connect, but only one game. So I might as well get some more games for it. I'm not sure. I know they played one of them last night, but my wife and we went out for a date night, and so I don't know which game they played. Whether they just played Connect Sports, which we already had, or if they played one of the new ones or not. I don't know. I didn't bother asking, but I'm not planning on playing them because I played the Connect Sports and it was okay. I think Wii Sports and Wii Fit games are better. So, but
I know you had at least a eventful Christmas because your wife keeps posting pictures of your children all passed out. Facebook's
yeah,
just littered with your kids just sleeping.
yeah, we've had a number of late nights this week, or this past the past week, because the kids are all out of school, so it's just like let's have fun. Let's not worry about sending them to bed at and everything. All Connect games are bad. You monster subjecting your children to that. Um, they're not
Hey, I just
bad
put it in the
games.
living room. It's up to them if they want to play it.
Yeah, they're not bad games. Like they're not well designed games, and the Kinect isn't that great of an input device. Um, and and so it's just kind of a novelty. We've got the PlayStation Move, and we've got the Wii, so we've got the full slate of motion control video game consoles of that generation, and yeah, all the Wii stuff's better than anything on the Kinect or the PlayStation Move. So, but,
According to Trey, if I'm reading Trey's comment right, um, his Wii U died 2 days after launch. Sent it back, and then they sent him a repaired Wii U, and then but they sent it to the wrong address, and it floated around for a few months. Yeah, I don't know what's up with FedEx lately, but this package is literally the third package that's been delivered to my third wrong apartment, delivered to my unit in the last like month and a half. At least they were the right building this time.
have they all
Uh,
are all the packages are all the addresses in the teens, like 10 through 19, and they're
well,
just reading the first digit,
all the
or
bill. No, I don't know what well, one was the right unit number, just the wrong building,
mhm.
which was across the street. Um, that was like a month and a half ago. One a few weeks ago was the right street, wrong building, and wrong unit number. I'm like, would you please look at the? It's not like the address on the label was wrong,
Yeah,
or like a raccoon scratched part of it or something that
yeah,
couldn't be read.
I'm
No.
with Matthew there. It's your FedEx driver just sounds like he's incredibly lazy and not paying
Just,
attention.
yeah.
It's
Boxes are boxes. Who cares?
it's like I've gotten other people's mail before in the past, but usually you can figure out why they made the mistake. Like, sometimes it's the same street number or the same house number but a different street, or sometimes it's the same street but the wrong
Yeah.
house number. But yeah, occasionally you get some of these way off. It's like you know something totally different than what your address is, and it's like, how in the world did you mistake this for mine?
Yeah.
um,
I have to be honest. I don't. This one was definitely FedEx. The Christmas present. The last one was. I don't know who delivered it. It was perishable goods. I think someone bought groceries online. So I don't know who delivers that. And then the one before I think was just USPS. So
Yeah.
it's not the same as that same FedEx driver. Uh,
Yeah.
but
But
that's
Mixtape says
that's
forget
three packages. I wonder if any
forget
of my
about
mail has gone missing.
probably, but Mixtape says forget about getting FedEx packages in apartments. They leave your stuff at the end of the hall at the bottom of the stairs. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
probably like I lived in an apartment and they didn't have um we didn't have porches or even breezeways like a lot of apartments do. It was just all the doors faced the sidewalk and everything, and there was just one central post area, mail
Mhm.
area, and that's just where all packages got dropped off at the office main office,
Yeah.
and you just got a note in your mailbox or something saying you got a package them at the post or at the main office, which I think is probably the better solution for delivering packages at apartments, just because most apartments don't have a porch. It's a shared breezeway, or it's
Hmm.
the apartment's
Yeah,
just
I've
facing the
often come home
sidewalk.
and like it'll just be a package like sitting by my front door, and I'm like, well, glad no one walked off with it.
Yeah.
I do have a little fenced-in patio area though, so sometimes they're clearly just chucking it over the fence because there's no way you can just reach over and gently set it by my door. I don't believe they're actually, unless they're 9 feet tall and just kind of stepping over my fence. What I always find funny is when they put oversized packages like under my doormat. So it's just this giant
Oh
box
yeah.
with a doormat sitting on top.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh come on!
It's 3 feet by 2 feet,
Exactly.
and they put your tiny 1.5 by 2 foot mat on top of it, thinking, "Oh yeah, this is perfectly hidden."
No one will see it. In fact, he might step on it and break it.
Yeah, well, it's like at our where I currently live. Our house is uh, um, there's woods like trees
Hmm.
blocking the view between our house and the street, and the post office pretty much always just leaves one of those notes saying you've got a package, you got to come and pick it up. We never get packages delivered to us, and we asked our postal worker who delivers our mail. It's like, why don't you ever just pull, drive it up to our door and leave and knock on our door? And they're like, we're not allowed to. If we can't see the street from your doorstep, we're not allowed to actually go there. And I'm just like, oh, that's
Huh.
nice. Yeah.
All right.
But if the package can fit it, we've got an oversized mailbox, one of the bigger ones. And so if the package can fit in there, they'll stick it in there. And occasionally, like just recently, we got a package and they just kind of left it leaning up against the mailbox, in which we're lucky nobody snagged it and drove off. But
Yeah. Matthew's
uh,
describing a system that they do at my current and my former apartment complex, in that we have mail cubbies with our own little mail keys. So we have little boxes. It's
yeah,
like a post office box. Um, so you unlock the door, you reach in, and you grab your mail. Uh, and if they have large packages from Amazon or whatever, there are larger cubby lockers, each with their keys just hanging in the door. So they'll put your package in one of the larger cubbies and throw the key in your mailbox,
yeah,
which is
the
nice.
apartment I stayed in before had that system as well, but not all packages can fit in there.
Right,
you're not gonna fit your new desk chair in one of those things. Yeah,
right.
that's gonna get dropped off
In which case,
at
leave
the
it with my
office.
landlord. The office is right there next to the mail cubbies. She's
Yeah,
right there. So, and
yeah,
she's. You'll like her. Yeah, well.
yeah.
So over the break, I made slash try, well, helped make and tried a new dish called Kugel. Well,
Google
it's new to me. I'm sure it's been around for many a year.
sounds
It is.
familiar.
It's a an egg noodle dish with eggs in it. So,
Mhm.
um, and cinnamon. So
Interesting.
it doesn't look great, and it doesn't sound like it would be good, but it's actually pretty good. And I helped make it, and so my sister, she's she gives me the job of separating eggs. She's like, it's 7 eggs. And she said, put 7 eggs in the bowl. So I went into the fridge and I took out 7 eggs and I put them in a bowl and I handed it to her because I'm a jerk. And she's like, not in the shells. So I had to separate the eggs, yolks and whites.
Yeah.
And she says, okay.
Which is fun if you don't actually have an egg separator. It's like we've
I
done the
don't.
whole
I
we've
do it
done the
by
whole
hand. Yeah.
flipping it back and forth between the two halves of the shell.
Oh, I don't do that. I strain
Oh,
it
you
through
don't
my.
do that.
I wash my
Oh,
hands
you do
first.
your
I
fingers.
strain it through
Okay.
my fingers. That it's a lot easier to control and not break the yolk. For me, doing the shell to shell thing, one, I'm likely to just drop the yolk, or I'll snag the yolk on the side of the shell and tear it, and it'll
Yeah.
just bleed into my into the whites. Uh, but anyway, what was funny is my sister gave me an instruction on what to do. She says, "Okay, you need to beat this until it peaks." And I was like, "What?" Okay. So I had a whisk or a hand mixer or whatever I was doing. I'm like, here? She's like, until it peaks. I'm like, so more? Yeah. Whisk, 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 whisk. Here? She's like, what part of until it peaks do you not understand? I'm like, the until it peaks part. What does that mean? And my mom comes over, if I'm remembering this right, my mom comes over and she says, make meringue. I went, oh, I'm like, okay. I had never heard the make it peak, but once my mom or maybe I have it backwards, and one was my mother, one was my sister. Once someone told me, whip it until it's meringue. I'm like, oh, that's what you peak. Oh, I get it. And like, I had no idea what the hell she meant. So, but anyway, Kugel's
Nice.
pretty good. So
Okay.
tried a new dish and it was a thumbs up. Oh, and we also made one of our Christmas traditions is we have a French toast breakfast. But Mom found a new recipe for baked French toast. So we got French baguettes, chopped them into slices,
Yeah.
and lined a glass baking dish with them, and then we made a egg and sugar and cinnamon mix and dumped it on them, and then made a streusel, the crumbly bits, bake it in the oven, and oh man, it is good.
That sounds good. Yeah, that sounds
Yeah,
good.
it turned out really well.
Yeah, see, our Christmas tradition here is we make snickerdoodles, and we color them red and green, and that's what we leave out for Santa, and my kids love them. Snickerdoodles are my favorite cookie, and I started the tradition. I'm like, if I'm gonna be Santa and I'm going to eat these cookies, I'm gonna eat a cookie that I like, and it's snickerdoodles. So so I
Santa says
started the tradition, and that's
snickerdoodles.
just what we've stuck with. So
There you go.
yeah.
I should have saved the picture. I think I had. No, I am. Well, maybe I put it. No, I just emailed it to some friends. My sister. I had this wonderfully stupid idea. Uh, my mom likes peanut M&Ms. So I decided to buy a 10-ounce bag of peanut M&Ms and individually wrap each M&M and fill my mom's sock with it. So So I don't know how many M&Ms
They're just
come in a
wrapped
10
like
ounce
little
bag.
hard candies.
Yeah, Esther and I spent probably 40 minutes individually wrapping 60, 70 peanut M&Ms. So she has a sock with with a bunch of peanut M&Ms inside. It's probably the longest a 10-ounce bag of peanut M&Ms has ever lasted. But
Probably.
that was fun.
That's nice.
Let's see. My mom and I played. I brought my PS4 out there too, and so we played the Monster Hunter World beta, which I managed to. But you do have to be online, but it's merely a check. The only thing I think it's only doing a server time check to make sure that it's go time for the beta. So I couldn't play with any players online, and it's not how I play anyway. But we played it, and
So does it have local multiplayer then, or were you
No,
just
but
taking turns?
I played. She watched.
Oh, okay,
That's not
that's
one of
how
the
you do.
ones
Yeah,
she
that's
plays,
right.
right?
Okay.
Mom's not great on the hand-eye coordination, so for video games anyway. But she loves puzzle games, story games. Uh, we played Until Dawn. She loves RPGs. Menu-driven stuff where you can walk around and do stuff. Anything that's like twitch reflexes is not her bag. But she plays everything else. Um, Mom's favorite weapon is the dual blades, which is the two swords. Um, I'm not sure what I'll end up maining. I played them all, and think I might go for, I think it's called the Charge Blade. I had a lot of fun with that one. Um, but we'll see. I'm just happy that Capcom let non PS Plus players. Sorry, Xbox and PC. I'm just glad I got a chance to play it a month or so early.
Yeah.
But we also played Until Dawn, which is uh, basically a horror movie game where you you have control over the characters and you wander around, but when they talk to each other, you decide what they say. So there's dialogue options. It's usually only a binary option. And you have to decide, oh no, Jessica's been kidnapped by a monster, and I'm gonna run and save her. Oh, should I jump over this canyon? There's this gap in the floor for some reason. Should I jump over it or should I walk around? It's like, well, you know, I'm not going to be any good to Jessica if I sprain my ankle, so I'll walk around. Jessica died. From what
Nice.
I understand, you can, if you play it right, everyone can survive or everyone can die or any combination in between. Mom and I ended the game with only Jessica having died, so I think we did pretty well. No big loss. Jessica's not a very good person. Although I did speak to someone earlier today who said, Jessica survived in my playthrough, and she kind of grows on you after a while. I said, oh, well, she died in chapter 4 for me, so I never really got to know her. Um, but she's just a terrible person. I don't. I think Emily, another character in the game, has her beat though. She's like the John McClane of video games in that she takes a pounding, but she just gets up and keeps walking. She's actually incredibly resilient and amazing, but she's just such an awful human being. I'm like, why are you friends with this person? She's so terrible.
Yeah.
Um, Actually, a fun game. I'll be interested to go back through it and try some different paths. Uh, some of the UI gets a little. I'm not clear what you want me to do.
Hmm.
For example, there's one instance where I was like, I want to put the gun on the table. I ended up shoving it in someone's face. I'm like, no, don't do that. I meant put it down. Don't the opposite of what I wanted. There's some
Yeah.
unclear prompts toward the end of the game where it says run for the light switch or hide. I'm like, hide. And then the last prompt is run or hide. I'm like, well, okay, I don't want to hit the light switch. So this one isn't saying light switch. So now it's safe to run. So she runs and hits the light switch. I'm like, no, I didn't think she'd hit the light switch because every previous prompt had light switch. Ah, I
Yeah.
demand a do over. Matthew says this is horror movie 101s. Teenagers in horror movies are never good people. Yeah, well, actually, in this game, they are very a lot of archetypes. They're very archetypical in this game.
Yeah.
So you have there. So it's very horror genre tropey, and there's something to be said for that. But on the other hand, it's a 10-hour game. It would be nice if the people you want me to not purposefully kill weren't totally awful people. Or if I'm trying to buy that these are actually friends who would ever spend time together.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, I really enjoyed the game. It's a little slow to start, I think, but overall, I quite liked it, and I picked it up for I think $7 on a Halloween sale. was planning on playing it a bit during the Extra Life marathon, but didn't get around to it because of that 6-hour technical issue. Oh well.
Yeah.
And yes, for anyone who's wondering, I saw Star Wars Part 8 or whatever it is, but Zachary didn't, so we're not going to discuss it today.
Okay.
But I liked it.
One of these days I'll get around to actually watching it. But
So
I was planning on
I want to
watching
see
it
Shape of
yesterday,
Water.
but
That's
Shape
what I
of
want to
Water.
see.
Yeah.
Yep, the Guillermo del Toro movie.
Yeah, I know several people who decided they weren't going to finish the movie when they actually went to watch it. But
Wait, which one? Star Wars or Shape of Water?
Shape of Water.
Oh, okay.
It just went into territory they weren't prepared for, so they decided
Really?
to.
That's the whole reason to go. If you're talking about what I think you're talking about, that's the reason to go see the movie.
Yeah. Oh well.
Like
But
Superman, you will believe a man can fly. Shape of Water, you will believe a woman can love a fish in the biblical sense. By gum, I want to see this.
yeah.
Besides, Guillermo del Toro makes some pretty good movies. So,
Yeah.
all right, I think we've stalled long enough.
Yeah.
Let's get to topics. Uh,
All
so,
right.
swatting is something that has about a decade-long history now. It is where, for those of you who I envy you and you don't know, but what it is someone will call in will put a call into 911 saying that there's been a shooting or there's a hostage situation or something going on at this address over here. Send the SWAT team to kick down the door or something. That's incredibly dangerous, obviously. The idea, I mean, it's the escalation of the sending, ordering 12 pizzas and sending it to Larry's house. Now Larry's stuck with paying for 12 pizzas. Of course, at the end of the day, Larry ends up with 12 pizzas, which expensive, but there are worse things that can happen. You send several armed people to someone's house, no good's gonna come from that.
Yeah, and
And
this is something. Yeah, and like you said, it's been around for quite a while, but it's recently been, just in the last couple of years, has become the go-to uh, thing for gamers and
go to retaliation, I
yeah,
suppose.
retaliation.
The
Yeah,
real world retaliation. I mean, it's there's doxing, I suppose, but this is the reach out and touch someone version of that.
yeah,
Um, the
and
thing that Zachary and I wrote, of course, for Game Politics back when that was around, and so we covered a lot of these stories. And I didn't fact check this, but I saw in multiple locations reporting that there are approximately 400 swatting incidents per year, which I did not realize it was that high. Makes me wonder. It's
that
like, well,
seems high, but yeah,
that seems high because it's like, well, how many times a year is SWAT deployed? I would have figured that it was maybe around that number. It's like,
that
wait a minute,
SWAT's deployed a
are
lot, and
and
because they
probably
do a
shouldn't
lot
be.
of they do the vast majority of when vast majority of times that SWAT is sent out, it's to serve a drug warrant,
That
and
requires
usually
SWAT.
they make it require SWAT, and they do these. They a lot of them are done in like the very early hours of the morning,
Mhm,
where people are still in bed. Occasionally late at night when people are starting to go to bed,
mhm.
but yeah, it's the vast majority of SWAT deployments are for drug warrants. Very few, relatively few, are for actual imminent threat situations like a hostage
Right.
or an active shooter type situation,
Mhm.
and which is what SWAT teams are originally meant to be, and now they're just glorified warrant delivery services, and but yeah,
So now, obviously, the danger, guns and lots of them, and you send a small army of people with guns to a place where they think is dangerous, and they might be in danger of being shot at. Recipe for disaster. So the irritatingly frustrating thing about swatting is how often it's referred to or described as a hoax or a
a
prank.
prank, yeah,
Um,
and
which
that kicks me off.
it's yeah, I mean, you can't. I mean, mechanically, from likely from the intent, it's an appropriate word just from a very strict pedantic dictionary definition uh, reading of the word. But I think it's wrong and dangerous to equate swatting with TPing someone's house. You know?
Yeah, with a prank, you're inconveniencing someone, or you're doing something that the person might, tomorrow laugh at.
Yeah.
They might not like it today, but tomorrow they'll look back and it's like, yeah, I fell for it.
TPing
Yeah,
someone's house is not going to get anybody killed.
no, it's
Unless
going to make a
unless
terrible
you're
call for
shot by the
dead.
homeowner for trespassing. But um,
Yeah,
you wake up, your house is covered in toilet paper. You got some cleanup to do.
yeah,
That sucks, but no one's going to die. You send a lot of scared people with guns to someone's house. Well, someone could die, and you and I and everybody else have been saying it for years. If this continues, if people don't take this seriously, someone's going to die. Someone's already been shot. That was like a year or two ago. But I think 2 days ago, someone was swatted and someone died. So
yeah.
give us
And what makes this story more tragic is that the guy who was swatted wasn't even had nothing to do with the person who made the call. Based on the stories that I have read from the Wichita Eagle,
Mhm.
is that the call was made after two people got into a dispute over like a $1.50 or $2 bet over a Call of Duty game, and then one of them was egging on the other one, and sent him an address and said, "I dare you to swat him," or something along those lines, and so the other one took him up on the offer and called in a SWAT or a 911 call, made the claim that I actually listened to the 911 call that was released. They released the 911 call. They released the body cam footage from one of the police officers on the scene.
Yeah, the
Um,
police officer who is standing furthest away.
yeah, and that kind of annoyed me. It's like there's a squad car right next to the front porch of this house, but we're looking at a squad car that's like 200 feet away or something, totally, so far away that you can barely make out the guy on the porch. Um, but so they released the 911 call, and the guy on the phone, he's acting kind of aloof. It's like, you know, and he's calm, I guess, but he's he's playing it where he's kind of distracted or something, and he describes a situation where he was in an argument and he killed his father. And then he's got his mother, and I forget what sibling it was. He said it was in a closet, and and he says, he's got a gun and everything, and that he's poured gasoline, and he's ready to light the house on fire, and the lady, the dispatch, or the lady who answered the 911 call, she's trying to get more information from him. It's like, what kind of gun do you have? And he's like, I don't know, it's my dad's. And she says, well, what color is it? He said, it's black. And she's trying to get him to describe where he is in the house, and where the people are, and trying to get him to describe the house. And one of the things, she asks him, what direction does the house face, and like where what direction is the front door, and what direction does it face? And she's trying to prompt him to get cardinal direction. She's like, is it east or west or north or south? And he says it's facing the street. And and she's like, are you in a 2-story house, a 1-story house? And he says 1-story house. And the house that they show up to is a 2-story house. And I'm listening to these calls, or listening to this call, and seeing all this, the footage and the reports, and I'm like, were there no red flags raised by the description from the guy on the phone versus what they actually saw at there? It's like he can't give them a direction that the house is facing, which, I'm sure there's some people out there that don't know north, south, east, and west, but most people will know what direction their house faces, because it all the
Which
sun's
side of the
gonna
house does the sun rise on?
yeah. But the fact that he just said it was a 1-story house and they showed up to a 2-story house, that should have been the biggest red flag right there. It's like, maybe something else is going on
Yeah,
here.
I didn't listen to the 911 call, but did you get the sense that the dispatcher was sensing that something was off, and she was?
I think she was, she was trying to get information so that she could relay that to the officers that are going there, or officers already on scene. But yeah, she was asking very, very specific questions about the house, trying to get a feel for it. And I think she had the suspicion that maybe he wasn't, he wasn't actually there. That this wasn't a serious call. But she never, as far as I know, she never actually relayed any suspicions to the officers on scene, or anything. So. But yeah,
So
but
yeah, go
according
ahead.
to the reports from the police officers on scene, and is that a man opened up the door and stepped out, and their account is that he dropped his hand to his waist and then raised his hand back up, and they shot him, or one of the officers shot him. But they're shining a giant spotlight right on the front door where he's stepping out. We're looking at a body cam that's at least 100 feet away, and so you can barely make out the guy on the porch, and so you can't really see what he's doing. And so it's like, we don't know exactly what it is that prompted him, but yeah, we're in a country where if you got a guy, if you're pointing a gun at somebody and they drop their hands to their waist, that's a death sentence, and that that ticks me off. That drives me nuts. Is that officers will just shoot somebody just for that one motion if they believe that person is armed.
Yeah. I don't know what the solution is as far as that goes. I mean, there seems to be a rule in place. I don't know if it's like state by state or what, but if you fear you're in danger, go ahead and shoot. Which, in some senses, I guess sounds reasonable, but at this point, with so many literally unarmed people being shot dead, maybe we need to revise that. I don't know if we need to be more stringent in the type of people we hire to be police officers, or if we need to raise the standard of shooting people. Like,
we definitely do. One of the
need to do something.
Yeah, one of the comparisons that I'm always raised is that we have our soldiers are held to a higher standard for shooting at someone than our cops are. Whereas soldiers, they have a checklist basically that you have to go down before you can actually open fire on someone.
Well, hell, if
it's
our
like
police
even
officer...
before you actually shoot to kill, you have to shoot warning shots. You have to give verbal commands before that, and And it's like, and really, it boils down to the fact that a soldier cannot fire unless fired upon,
Right.
or unless you can like somebody somebody with a IED strapped to their chest. Yeah, they can shoot at that guy, but yeah, but for cops, we don't have that same sort of system in place, and we don't act. Police unions are part of the reason why we don't, because
Yeah.
they don't want that kind of accountability.
Yeah, I
For,
figure that's another thing that, well, I mean, there's so many systemic problems here with the entire thing that needs to be addressed. But you're right. The accountability is one thing. I mean, the whoever it was, whichever police officer it was that shot uh,
what's
the
his
guy who
name?
got, well, it was Andrew. I remember the first name. Um,
Yeah.
the guy who got shot. Um, he probably will not face. I mean, he'll probably be
Well,
put on
he's
paid
on
leave for a bit,
administrative leave right
administrative
now
leave,
while this is going on,
while
but
the
he'll be paid
investigation goes.
administrative leave.
But the department itself will very likely be the ones conducting their own investigation, which I
Yeah.
don't agree
Andrew
that
Finch is the guy who was
Finch,
shot.
right?
Yeah.
Um, I don't think departments should be doing their own I think investigation should be done by an outside party. I
Yeah.
and well, we're getting off topic here. The whole, if we didn't go through it before, so two gamers playing Call of Duty or something got angry at each other, started mouthing off. One says, "I'm gonna swat you," and the other guy says, "Oh yeah, well, here's my address, go for it. I don't believe you, chicken buck buck." And then the other guy took that address, gave it to a third guy who apparently is known for swatting and apparently a bomb threat a couple of years ago, and he has since been arrested, by the way.
Yeah, his name is
And he,
Tyler Barris in Los Angeles.
yeah,
So
so north of me. So he called in the made that swatting call, uh, and got someone killed, and yeah. So what happened with Andrew? What's his name?
Finch. Yeah.
Finch. So they hear commotion outside and police yelling, and he opens the front door. He's got spotlights in his face, flashing lights. However many people pointing guns at him, and is shot and is
Yeah, and he's
taken to
shot
the hospital and
within
died in the
seconds
hospital.
of stepping out onto his porch.
Yeah, about
And
10, 15
yeah,
seconds.
yeah, it was very little time between that, and it's a very tragic story, and really and this is something that I've been warning people about for years, is that this is you're sending out people jacked up on adrenaline and possibly drugs too. Some of these cops might actually be on drugs at the time too, and with guns into a situation where they according to their understanding, there's an active threat,
Hmm.
and they're very likely to open fire. We've been, up to this point, we've been very lucky to not have this. We've
Yeah,
had
I
we've had somebody shot but not killed,
right.
but this is
Morbid
the
as it
first
sounds,
time.
I am amazed it took this.
Yeah,
It was this long before someone actually died.
yeah, and it's amazing that it took this long, but it's also
Yeah.
tragic that it actually happened, and
Mhm.
hopefully this sends a wake up call to anybody that has been considering doing this,
Well, as someone in
swatting
our
somebody
who's
else.
a leaf in our chat is saying that based on the gentleman's Twitter, he has zero remorse from what he has done, and yeah, I've read the purported tweets from the same
Yeah,
person, and
he says basically, all I did was make a phone call. I didn't
not my
pull the
fault. I'm
trigger.
not. I didn't pull
Yeah,
the trigger. So,
yeah,
um, you know, hopefully there are probably, grossly simplifying this, but there are probably two main types of people who do swatting. Uh, Terrible human beings who are literally trying to hurt somebody, or just don't care if they do hurt someone.
mm-mm.
Or two, genuinely stupid people who honestly, for some reason, have no idea that someone could get hurt or die. They're just just sending cops to someone's door, and they'll be flashing lights, and they'll point guns, and it'll be scary. It's just like sending pizzas. No one's gonna get it. It's like, do you not watch the news?
Yeah. But I want to go back to the whole calling it prank, and I want to give props to the game reporting, game sites. Is that I have seen fewer and fewer game sites referring to swatting as a prank. Kotaku was the most recent one that I read, and they did not say prank at any point in their coverage of the story. And I want to give these guys props. The video game industry or the video game reporting industry is very on point by not calling it a prank. It's the mainstream media that is still calling these pranks.
Seems to be,
So the Wichita, Kansas, the initial report that I read had prank in there probably 24 times.
Yeah, I mean, even if you're going to use hoax or prank, at the very least, you have got to prefix it with some type of descriptor,
deadly,
adjective, deadly or dangerous or
dangerous,
something.
Yeah.
Troy says this topic doesn't fit my expectations of a podcast ironically titled Molehill Mountain. Fair point.
Yeah. This is a very big deal, and it should be a big deal. But Molehill Mountain implies unimportant things being made big. Yeah.
Trey asked earlier, what do we think the punishment should be for swatting? Well, I think it probably depends. Jail time.
I think it depends on
someone is hurt or died. But
it depends
honestly,
on what happens. It depends on what happens at the SWAT raid, but at minimum, there should be some jail time.
Yes.
If all that happened is a cop knocked on the door and found out nothing happened, that's making a false report on 911 is already a crime.
Yeah, whatever the punishment for that is fine.
But if the SWAT team actually knocks in the door, goes in guns a-blazing, and points their guns at people, yells at them, and arrests somebody.
That's literally terrorizing people.
That's terrorizing someone. There should be some serious jail time for that. If somebody gets injured, up the jail sentence. And in this case, this is accessory to murder or something in that.
I'm open to arguing degrees, but that is definitely murder.
It's definitely murder and should be treated as such. And whether it's first degree, second degree, negligent
I'm open
homicide or whatever, but somebody died.
Yeah, so I don't know what I mean, calling in swatting, I mean, at bare minimum, reckless endangerment or something along those lines. I don't know what the
reckless endangerment is definitely a crime, a felony, and there's some serious jail time for that. But it depends on state by state, I think. We definitely need to be more on more on point in seeking charges for these things. And I know they can't. I know there's no way that they could investigate and arrest somebody for all calls. But those calls that actually result in the SWAT being sent out, like an actual SWAT team arriving on scene, those definitely need to be investigated, and somebody needs to be arrested for those. But if they never amount to anything, just making a false report is probably sufficient.
Yeah. Troy says up to 5 years in prison, 28 months community service, $100,000 fine. That's very specific, but yeah. Matthew says, as far as sending out SWAT teams for these type of calls, says raise the standard. SWAT should never be first to the scene, and normal cops can only carry a taser. Leaf says he should be locked up for life.
In this case, I definitely agree that a life sentence is reasonable.
Also, this is someone with a history of allegedly, apparently, this is what I've read in the various reportings we've seen today and yesterday. Someone who has a history of bomb threats. I mean, I don't know what the sufficient punishment is, but this is someone who should be off
the street. As for SWAT not being the first on scene, and I agree. I think SWAT should always be a last resort.
Yeah.
Sure, this sounds scary that somebody's taking a family hostage and stuff. Somebody needs to actually show up there and try to do a little bit of investigating before they surround the house with guys with guns.
Well, also, I mean, especially if there's 400 of these every year.
Yeah,
I mean, boy who cried wolf. I mean, yeah, you have to be aware that there could be a wolf, but I don't. You can't just. I mean, you do have to do something. You have to investigate. You can't say, yeah, right. This is probably a prank. Well, it could be a
well,
real
yeah.
thing, but
Well, it's like, just going back to the 911 call. Um, she asked enough specific questions and he gave enough vague answers that should have raised enough red flags that they should have just sent two squad
I
cars
mean,
to
yeah,
knock on the
at the
door
very
and look in a
least,
window
yeah, at the
or
very
see.
least, training police and SWAT and whoever to understand that a lot of times this is a prank. Please don't shoot the person who runs out the front door. You know, I
Yeah,
mean, know that this could be real, but know that this could also be bull. That these
yeah,
could just be in the family eating dinner that you're pointing guns at. So yeah, this is just a phenomenally terrible thing that hopefully never happens again. But
hopefully.
not to be a cynical jerk, but I have my doubts. So I
Yeah,
mean, like what I was saying earlier, the police officer who shot the guy is probably nothing's going to happen to him. I mean, at worst, so he may be transferred to another place.
or
Um,
given desk duty for six
yeah,
months or whatever.
uh,
Um,
don't know what's going to happen to the one person who was arrested, but the person who provided the false address definitely needs to look into because I have to wonder, did this person
just make up an
knowingly
address
provide?
off.
I mean,
Yeah,
did this person make up an address and it just happened to be an actual address, or did they pick the house down the street? I honestly don't know. But
yeah. It's like what was. Yeah, yeah.
if
That's a good
you're,
question. Was the person who gave the address, is that somebody that actually lives there and picks somebody on their in their own town?
I mean,
That's
then again, I mean, maybe I'm letting my emotions get the better of me here, but if you are, oh yeah, I dare you to send a SWAT to my address at this, and you give what could even if you don't know for sure, but if you give out something that could plausibly be a real address, that might be at least criminal negligence or something like that.
yeah,
I mean, if you go 123 Rainbow Street, it, and that somehow turns out to actually be a real address, okay, you still should not have done that, but there was no devious intent there. That's a horrible coincidence. But if you're actually giving a proper building number and an actual street, and I don't know if this guy gave like a full zip code or anything, but um,
yeah,
if he actually gave what he knew was a real address, then we're someone
yeah. That
else needs
that
needs
needs.
to
Yeah, he
needs some
needs to be
punishment too.
investigated and probably arrested. But
Yeah. Well, let's
uh,
move on from this
to
horrible
something.
topic, which I really didn't want to talk about because it does nothing but upset me. Thank you very
Yeah,
much, Zachary.
you're welcome.
So let's move
But it
on to
was something
something,
that I very much wanted to talk about.
yes, much,
Just
much cheerier.
yeah, yeah.
Copyright.
Copyright. Yes, that's
We
even
love
better.
copyright.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, my Andrew Eats an Orange video, I had to, I did a video 2 weeks ago and I published it last week. It's called Andrew Eats an Orange. Maybe you can guess what happens in this video. Um, YouTube did something weird that screwed up the video in that I couldn't promote it. Every time I tried to promote it to Twitter or YouTube, the image and the title wouldn't show up.
Huh.
The video doesn't actually list on YouTube. You can try to search for it and it doesn't come up. Um, so I deleted the video and I re-uploaded it, and I haven't published it yet. It's okay. It was only watched like 20 times, so most of you didn't see it. And I think it's because it had no preview image. But I re-uploaded it, and it got marked again for inappropriate or inappropriate for advertisers or something. And what's funny is the original video I uploaded was marked the same, and I appealed, and it got they rescinded the flag. Same exact video got flagged again. It's like,
Yeah, I think
nope.
they're just, they have a 50-50 random chance of flagging a video, and that's what they're doing. They don't have a real algorithm or anything that
I think they just flagged
analyzes the video. They just like, flip a coin, heads it's flagged, tails it's not. You're good to go.
Here's all I'm saying. They've flagged every single one of my videos. I appeal or request a review for every single one of my videos. They've rescinded the flag on every single one of my videos, which means that YouTube is so far 100% wrong. It's been wrong. If it's flagging my video and I appeal and it rescinds the flag, that is admitting it was wrong in the first place. So, considering YouTube is wrong every single time, you would think at some point it would just give me the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah.
But nope. Anyway, copyright.
Yeah. All right.
Let's talk about
copyright. Okay. Well, this one's a little more cheery, I guess.
Comparatively speaking.
Comparatively speaking, yes. But January 1st is a major holiday. It's a day where things actually go into the public domain everywhere in the world except for the U.S.
We're very special.
Yeah, it's internationally called Public Domain Day by a lot of people. So it's New Year's, but most countries' copyright law states that after X number of years, on the first of the month of the following year, that thing goes into the public domain, and so most countries throughout the world, something enters the public domain every January 1st, but except for the US, because US copyright law is absolutely insane in term extensions and everything, wherein right now it's the life of the author plus 70 years. And even if so the for everything after 1923, published in 1923 and beyond, it's all under copyright law. Or under copyright. For works made by corporations, it's 95 years. But we're looking at extremely long times. Any copyrights that are owned by corporations for things published in 1923 won't enter the public domain until 2019. So we still have one more year to go to get Steamboat Willie, unless, maybe not Steamboat Willie. I don't know. I don't remember what year that one was published. But there's works that won't enter the public domain until a year from now, or a year from Monday. So the U.S. won't have a true public domain day until 2019. And every year, the Duke Law School publishes they publish a page that they talk about. They talk about all the works that are being entering the public domain outside the U.S. And they haven't published this one yet. They usually don't publish it until the January 1st. So I'm just kind of getting a drop on it. It's I plan on publishing an article on Random Tower about this. But the Duke Law School. So last year they mentioned a few things that enter the public domain, but then they talk about what is not entering the public domain in the U.S. And they base this on what copyright terms were prior to the 1978 copyright extension. At that time, works entered the public domain after 28 years unless the creator requests an extension for another 28 years, so a maximum of 56 years. After that, after 1978, it was changed to the life of the author plus 70 or plus 50 years. I think it was like 75 years for or 70 years for a corporation. But in 1998, copyright was extended once again to life plus 50 and 95 years for corporations. And so, yeah, nothing has entered the public domain in decades here in the U.S. And so this year, they're going to publish another list. I'm sure they will. I'm following that very carefully. But last year I wrote an article about this, and I theorized, what video games might have entered the public domain last January 1st, so January 1st, 2017, if copyright terms were still 28 years. And then I also theorized what games would enter the public domain if copyright was its original length of 14 years plus another 14 years, because not all copyright owners extended their copyrights. There's been research done, and the vast majority of extensions were made by the movie industry. Very few copyrights were extended outside of the movie industry.
Mhm.
And so I figured in the video game industry, I would, I would say maybe not as many as movies would be extended, but certainly not, not all of them would be extended. And so last year I mentioned things like Eight Eyes, Battle Chess, Double Dragon 2, Dragon Quest 3, Final Fantasy 2, etc. And then for 28 years, so Super Mario Brothers 2 and 3 would have entered the public domain at that time. And then under 14 years, we would have had things like Elder Scrolls Morrowind, Heroes of Might and Magic 4, Icewind Dale 2, Kingdom Hearts, Mega Man 0, Metroid Prime, as a couple of them. And so this year, I figured I'd take a look and see what games would have, what games would have entered the public domain on Monday if, again, if copyright terms were 28 years or 14 years. And thankfully, Wikipedia has a great resource where they have specific lists of video games that were first published in a specific year. And for 28 years, we're looking at the year 1989. And then for 14 years, we're looking at 2003. I sent these lists to Andrew. Did you take a look? Did you get a chance to look over them?
I did, and I plucked out a few games from those 2 years.
Okay.
Uh,
Why don't you go ahead and name a couple of games that caught your eye from these lists?
okay, so from 1989, we have Batman. There are actually several Batman games, but of course, the one everyone knows and loves is the purple Batman, the one where you could
NES
cling to
Batman.
walls. Yeah.
That is actually my favorite Batman. I think it's one of the best Batman games ever made.
I haven't played the Arkham games,
Yeah,
so
I haven't
yeah,
played the Arkham games yet
so
either.
it might change if I play the Arkham games, but yeah, that's my favorite
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
There's also Bonk's Adventure, Boy and His
Mhm.
Blob, Castlevania 3, DuckTales, Final Fight, Friday the 13th, Golden Axe, Gradius 3, Iron Sword, Wizards and Warriors 2. Minesweeper is
Really?
apparently originally published in 1989, and now that's been has a million different versions, but
Yeah, and
that
that's been cloned to death as well. So,
right,
but yeah,
right.
that's kind of neat.
Phantasy Star 2, Populous, the original Prince of Persia. Now, the interesting thing is Prince of Persia Sands of Time, 2003, so that's in the other decade.
Yeah, I
R-Type
saw that.
2, Revenge of Shinobi, Scapegoat. I've never heard of that. I didn't even look up what it was, but I love that name, Scapegoat. That's
Hmm.
great. SimCity was 89, Strider, Super Mario Land for the Game Boy, uh, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, both the NES and the arcade game, Tetris,
Yeah, Tetris.
a couple Carmen San Diego games, and Zero Wing, which we all know is that game where all your base are belong to us comes from.
Yeah, yeah, that's a great, great collection of games there,
And Abadox.
Abadox, yeah,
I loved Abadox.
yeah. Uh,
Troy has a pertinent question. So if these games were public domain, what does that mean?
okay, for something that enters the public domain, it basically means that anybody is free to make copies and distribute those copies any way they choose. They can create fan works based on those, fan works, or I'm trying to think of the word, but take inspiration from, like, um, golly, what is the word I'm thinking of?
Homage?
Homage,
Clone?
or
Ripoff?
reimagining of a story,
Sure.
um, or something along those lines. But for video games, it would mean that people would be free to hack the game code. The game code itself probably wouldn't go into the public domain, just because a lot of these games nobody has the code for these days.
Mhm.
But people would be free to use hex editors to gain access to what they can, make changes to the game code, and
Okay. Kind of
swap
like
out
game keying and
sprites, extract the sprites, they extract the music, the sound effects, and use those. Um,
mhm.
and So basically, if you think of like the Creative Commons license, it's a lot like that, but you don't need, it's a uh, CC0 or CC0 or whatever license, where you're free to distribute and do whatever you want with.
Yeah.
Um,
Works
but
hitting the
yeah,
public domain is also incredibly valuable just for archiving and preservation
yeah,
aspects,
exactly, yeah, that too.
especially with video games, because as platforms, as we get new, the bigger, better platforms, old games don't play on them anymore. Now this is lessened, mitigated a bit by the fact that we have a lot of online stores, Steam and Sony and Microsoft and Nintendo's eShops and virtual consoles and stuff like that. But for example, Scapegoat. Scapegoat is probably not on Steam. It's probably not on any of the eShops or virtual console services, and it probably never will be.
Yeah.
Which means that it may be lost to time. No one may
Mhm.
ever play. Now, it could be a terrible, terrible game, but it's called Scapegoat, so it has some value. But if Scapegoat went into the public domain, it would be a lot easier to actually preserve the game and make sure that you and I and the next generations would always be able to go to look at lists of old games and go, Scapegoat, what the hell is that? And go look and actually experience the game.
Yeah, and I've written about this in the past before, and something going into the public domain doesn't mean that the original creator, if they're still alive, can't do anything with them.
Correct.
Um, you know, uh, but it just means that they don't have any power to stop anybody else from doing something with those works themselves. Um, one of the or there's two cases that I like to fall back on for what the well, I guess, for one, for things that are purely in the public domain, you get things like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, and those Peter Pan and Robin Hood. Think of Disney. A lot of their movies are based on public domain materials,
Mhm.
and a lot of other companies, a lot of other animators make movies based on those, and there's also books and stuff that are expansions of it. Taking Cinderella, for example, there's tons of movies that are based on it. Some of them are kind of look like Cinderella. Some of them are just direct adaptations. Romeo and Juliet's another one. West Side
Imagine,
Story
imagine
is
if all the Grimm's fairy tales were still under copyright.
Yeah, exactly. Or all of the works of Shakespeare. If all the
Right.
works of Shakespeare were still under copyright, we wouldn't have West Side Story,
Hmm.
because West Side Story is Romeo and Juliet
Right.
in a gang war, uh, a modern gang war. But one of the issues with the fact that copyright terms are so long, and this is one of the two biggest powerhouses in this are the Arthur Conan Doyle estate and the Edgar Rice Burroughs estate.
Hmm.
These guys, these estates are based on the authors that originally wrote the stories of Sherlock Holmes and then the Princess of Mars and Tarzan stories. But the problem is that most of the books from those two authors are in the public domain, but some of them still are under copyright. And those two estates use the fact that some stories are in copyright to muscle licensing fees from anybody that wants to use the public domain stories.
Yeah.
And that's a major problem. I forget which uh,
Well, a
comic
couple months ago, we were
publisher
talking
was.
about Capcom remove just for just so it wouldn't have to deal with the headache. Apparently, it's taking a Sherlock Holmes character out of one of its, I think, the Great Ace Attorney game,
Mhm.
because of a copyright issue. Even though Sherlock Holmes, the character, is public domain, uh,
Yeah,
the later books and all the stuff specific to those books and introduced in those books are still under copyright.
yeah, and it's very difficult to survive a lawsuit, or even you can still win a lawsuit. Like people
Right.
have won lawsuits against the Doyle estate
Yeah.
because they didn't use any of the other stuff, and then and when they failed the copyright side of this, they go after a trademark. It's like Sherlock Holmes is our trademark. You can't use that, and it's like
No,
you
it's not.
can't tell a Sherlock Holmes story without without having Sherlock Holmes in it.
Right.
And but there was a comics company a few years back. They tried to publish a uh, a comic version of A Princess of Mars from the Burroughs estate, and they were sued and had to shut down their comic, just because they couldn't deal with the lawsuit. And even though they were in the right. But for video games, we've never lived in a time where video games have entered the public domain.
Right.
There's never been a video game that has done that, because no video games were published prior to 1978. I think there might have been something, but
Well, the original Pong and stuff like that were
yeah, but
early 70s.
even those were uh, even those were brought into the modern copyright terms. So
Mm.
Pong and Space Wars and stuff, those are still under copyright because of that.
They were copyrighted
Uh,
later. Right.
yeah. Um,
I'll give you another example of what you were talking earlier about being transformative works coming from public domain uh, works. Mystery Science Theater 3000. That show
yeah.
would not have existed without public domain works to riff on.
Yeah.
And if it weren't for MST3K, we probably wouldn't have a lot of the YouTuber scene that we have today with commentaries and Let's Plays and some of the other shows like Angry Video Game Nerd
Yeah.
and commenters of that ilk. Uh, all of them have their some roots in Mystery Science Theater 3000, and that would not have been possible without some movies being in the public domain.
Yeah. And so with video games, like I said, we never had a situation where video games were ever under threat of going into the public domain, and that's a very sad case, because a few years back I did um, I did a little bit of research into video games that are legitimately available uh, on modern consoles. And I looked mainly at the Nintendo eShops, the virtual console shops, and I found that there is far less than 10% of video games published on the NES, the Super NES, the Neo Geo, the Commodore 64, the original Game Boy, the Game Gear, etc. That are available through these legitimate channels that Nintendo set up. I didn't look at the PlayStation Network for PlayStation 1 classics. I didn't look at games that were published in combo packs on later on, like the Final Fantasy Anthology or the Mega Man collections, that kind of stuff. I didn't look at those, and I didn't look at things like GOG or anything like that, because there's no way of telling how many PC games there are out there.
Yeah.
But far less than 10% of video games are available. You gave off a great list of games from 1989.
Yeah, and there's over 400, so I only gave like 2 dozen.
Yeah, and a lot of them were games that I was going to mention too. A couple other ones that I think are good. That I caught my eye. Adventures of Lolo, Alex the Kid in the Enchanted Castle. Willow is another one that I saw. We get I mentioned Double Dragon 2 last year. I think that might have actually been the arcade game or something, but the NES version
One of the
is
Double Dragons was in the list, yeah.
yeah, Double Dragons 2 is available this year for the NES version. Let's see, some other ones. Tecmo Baseball is another one. Several Tecmo games are there. Gradius 3 is another one. But yeah, Castle Quest, that was a game that I always enjoyed playing on the NES. But yeah, Pipe Mania, that's one that's been
Iterated on a lot.
A lot, even though it's technically illegal. But yeah, you can still make games that are in genres or related to other games. You just can't do anything. Myth is another one that one of the original Myths, Strider. Yeah. But yeah, Tecmo Baseball is definitely there. Tecmo Night, Tecmo World Cup, Tecmo Racing. But yeah, I've always wanted to play Willow, but I never actually got around to playing it.
The NES one?
Yeah, the NES one. Wonder Boy 3, The Dragon's Trap.
Which they just actually they're doing a remastered version of that.
Yeah.
With redrawn art assets.
Yeah. But I don't know how to pronounce this. YS, is that Is or Yis or
I think
1, 2, and 3 are all all from that year. So definitely a lot of games that we could be having in the public domain.
Yeah.
Moving
over to 2000.
Gas Can on Fire says, I think the closest game in public domain is a DS game that was entangled in a lawsuit, so the code is evidence, which in turn can be got by anyone. It's not in the public domain, though. That's the issue. It may be in it may be there available to the public, but anybody that tried to distribute that code or use that code to make a game would be violating whoever's copyright it ends up being. So, yeah.
So skipping ahead to 2003, which I think had over 700 games.
700 games, yeah. And this is at the
good year.
The height, PlayStation 2's out now, GameCube,
Xbox, yeah.
Xbox, and then you still have games still being published for the PlayStation 1 and stuff at this time.
And you also still had some arcade going on.
Yeah, there's still some arcade games, yeah. Advanced Wars 2 is available. Dot Hack, some more of the Dot Hack series. Again, that one came out, there were some in that series in the previous year too. Age of Wonders, Shadow Magic, let's see, Aliens versus Predator Extinction, Aliens Unleashed. And we've got an Aquaman game, Battle for Atlantis. I don't know what that one is.
I think that was GameCube, PS2 is just kind of crap.
Yeah, Banjo-Kazooie, Grunty's
Yeah.
Revenge. A couple more Batman games. They're probably not very good because no, I don't have any
Nothing's better than
memories of them.
Batman 89.
No, nothing. A couple Bomberman games. Um, yeah, the original Call of Duty is
Hmm.
would be. Yeah, let's see here. I think there was a Castlevania. Yeah, Castlevania Aria of Sorrow,
Well, the
Lament of Innocence.
yeah, one of the DS game that was really really
Yeah.
good.
Yeah, we have Command and Conquer Generals and Zero Hour, and let's see, Conflict Desert Storm 2. I've actually seen that around in a couple of thrift stores lately, and I haven't decided if I actually want to buy it. But yeah, Dead or Alive Extreme Beach Volleyball,
Yep, yep. I remember seeing that in there.
Deus Ex, Devil May Cry 2. So
Deus Ex Invisible War, I think, was the
Invisible
one that's
War,
in there.
yeah.
Yeah.
Devil May Cry 2, which means we'd have two Devil May Cry games in the public domain. Disgaea, Hour of Darkness. The Disgaea games are a lot of fun. I like them.
They're not for me.
Really?
I've
You don't
tried them,
like them?
but I don't dislike them.
Yeah,
I don't think they suck or anything. They're just not my speed. They're not for me. I've
yeah,
tried a couple of them. I'm just like, it doesn't do it for me.
yeah. Well,
James Fudge
uh,
is like, heathen.
Elder Scrolls 3, Blood Moon, and Elder Scrolls Travels. I'm not familiar with those two titles.
No, never mind.
Yeah, those ones must be just, I don't know, on PC maybe.
Spin-offs. I don't. Well, speaking of spin-offs, there's Resident Evil Outbreak, which was the multiplayer one,
Yeah,
and Resident Evil Dead Aim, which was the shooter one, which was terrible.
yeah. Final Fantasy X2 and Crystal Chronicles and Tactics Advance. I didn't like Tactics Advance very much.
A lot of people really seem to like Crystal Chronicles, though.
Yeah, Crystal Chronicles. I had some college friends who would play that. They all had Game Boy Advances, and so they would get together and play that game
Yeah,
together.
for anyone that doesn't know, that was one of those games that required the Game Boy Advance link cables.
Yeah, and it was 4 player. Every
Hmm.
player required a Game Boy Advance and a link cable, and you could play together on the TV. And then there would be mini games or dungeons and stuff that you would play on the Game Boy Advance. So, yeah, I never got around to playing it just because I never had a Game Boy Advance at the time. So,
Yeah.
um,
Well, speaking of the link cable, Pac-Man Versus is on there.
oh yeah, that was kind of the height of the Game Boy Link cable thing,
Mm.
because there weren't too many games released after that year
Yeah.
for this. But Front Mission 4 is another good one that I like, or at least that I've wanted to play. Let's see here. I'm looking at the G's. Didn't see anything there, but
Oh, I did.
um, oh, you
Geometry
didn't.
Wars.
Geometry Wars. Oh, I forgot about that one.
Also, a game
Yeah,
that
Retro
never
Ball.
came out in America, Gift Pia, which was a Japan only game. One of those just really really weird ones that I just really wanted to play because it just looked so cool and it had great music. But I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, yeah, I can't even describe it. See
Yeah.
if you can find some old footage of it. It's really neat looking.
Okay. But we would get 2 Harvest Moon games, A Wonderful Life and Friends of Mineral Town.
I
Uh,
remember those. Yeah,
yeah. Hyper Street Fighter 2. There's the Hobbit video game that came out that year.
I remember that one. Yeah.
That one was a
Yeah.
terrible game.
Yeah.
Oh, let's see. Mm, golly, I meant to write down some of these things, so I'm just looking at the list and going through them.
I'll give you my
But
list.
yeah,
I did pluck a few out. There's
yeah.
1080 snowboarding, Baten Kaitos, which is one
Oh,
that I
yeah.
hope isn't lost to time because I think it's a really great
Now
RPG
that was the one that you
that I took
stopped
10
playing
years to
because the 10-year game.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Beyond Good and Evil came out that year.
Oh,
Uh, Crazy
nice.
Taxi.
That would be Beyond Good and Evil would be a great game to enter the public domain.
Yeah, that should
But,
be in the Library of Congress
yeah.
because it's great. But Crazy Taxi also, that's
That's a
a
good one too. Yeah.
F-Zero GX, Fatal Frame 2, Freedom Fighters, which not a lot of people played, but I really, really liked that game. I played it for a few hours on one of my charity streams. I think it's just a great game. I Ninja, which is another game that no one remembers, but I thought was cute and a lot of fun. Uh,
Yeah, I have vague memories of that one. Yeah.
yeah, Kenshin Dragon Quest, which showed up on the Wii several years later as Dragon Quest Swords and used the remote to. Yeah, you'd have enemies on the screen and you'd swing the remote at them.
Hmm.
How the original Kenshin Dragon Quest worked is it was sold with a plastic sword. So it was a dongle that you had to set things up on your TV and wave a plastic sword at your television. Worked exactly the same. I don't know how well it worked, but
Yeah.
um, Wind Waker, the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker.
Yeah, Wind Waker. That one is definitely a big deal there.
And
Um,
here's one that I would actually like to see remade. Lifeline. Do you remember this game? It was a PS2 game that
Life.
used the headset and mic. You played a
Oh,
you played a
yeah,
guy. You
yeah,
were
I
like
remember
locked in
that
a
one.
control room and you had to talk to some woman
It was
and
an
tell her what to
android.
do.
You had to give her commands to
I don't remember her
do
being a
things.
robot, but you had to
I
like
thought she was
tell
a
her.
robot. I don't know.
Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but you told her to, if there's a monster, you're like shoot, and she'd go bang, dodge, and she'd run to the side, and you'd have to tell her where to shoot the monster, and then when there weren't monsters, you'd have to say go to the kitchen and look at the wine bottle, take the thing, and it's an interesting thing is where how you're guiding this character through this adventure game with voice commands, and it just doesn't work at all. I mean,
Yeah,
it's so terrible. But the idea is interesting,
yeah,
and with
it was a
voice
very
recognition being a lot better today, it'd be interesting to see that game remade, only working. you know,
yeah.
um,
I
Manhunt
definitely
came out in 2003. The infamous Manhunt, Mario and
yeah.
Luigi Superstar Saga, Metal Arms, which I didn't like, but everyone else did, and
Mario Kart Double
Nude.
Dash. Yeah,
Nude. Do you remember Nude? I forget what it stands for. It's an acronym. I can't
nude.
remember what it stands for, but it's kind of. Do you remember Seaman on the Dreamcast?
Natural Ultimate Digital Experience. That's what it says.
Yeah, yeah. It was kind of like Seaman um, on the Dreamcast, where you have like a fish and you talk to it and it
Hmm.
learns. I think in this game you had like a robot or something that you talked to and it learned and grew as you talked to it. Something I
Yeah.
probably would not remember this game if it wasn't called Nude, to be honest.
Yeah, there's a very
I don't think it released outside of Japan either. So
no.
Piano 3, one of the infamous Capcom 5, which I love that game. Another game I played on one of my charity streams. I think it's a lot of fun. Postal 2, Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, as I mentioned. Rogue Ops, which is kind of a I think it was a Sam or a Sam Fish Splinter Cell wannabe.
Mhm.
And it's a lot better than you think it's going to be. It's not great, but I had fun playing it.
Yeah.
Second Life, which apparently is still around. Maybe
Yeah,
there's
it
like four
is.
people playing it.
Yeah, it's Eve Online was another game that came out that year too, and Second Life doesn't have nearly the modern following that Eve does. Eve,
Remember
people
when
still talk
yeah,
about Eve Online, but nobody talks about
you
Second
remember when
Life.
politicians and stuff were experimenting with having a presence in Second Life?
Yeah, they would set up little campaign headquarters and stuff in
Yeah,
there. Yeah, that
that was
was
fun.
interesting times.
Yeah. Siren, which was that PlayStation horror game where you like
Hmm.
sight jacked. You could like see through the eyes of the bad guys wandering around a level, so you
Yeah.
kind of had to figure out where they were based on what they were looking at. It was a weird game. Um, I don't remember if I'm trying to remember if the one if I think there were two Siren games. I can't remember if I'm thinking of the remake or Siren 2 or if I'm just completely confused, but that's
Yeah.
That's the original. True Crime Streets of LA, which I really, really liked, and they followed it up with True Crime New York, New York City, and then the spiritual successor, Sleeping Dogs. Anyway, True Crime Streets of LA I thought was hilarious because you I think it's Streets of LA. I'm pretty sure it's this game where you can chuck Molotov cocktails at people, and
Mm-hmm.
one of the or grenades, or you can light people on fire somehow, either from an explosion from a car or something. One of the voice clips is a guy yelling in Spanish. Um, uh, he's like, en fuego, agua, agua, ah! And that became my favorite voice. I'd light people on fire trying to find that guy because
Yeah.
for some reason that en fuego, ah, just made me laugh. Beautiful Joe, which is a
Ooh,
great
that's
game,
a good game. Yeah.
and WarioWare, the original
Oh, the
little
original.
micro mini games collection, WarioWare. So those were the ones I picked out of the 700. That was a hell of a year. There was a lot of great
Oh
stuff
yeah,
that
there's a
year.
lot of great things in this list, and it's hard to, it's like last year I narrowed my list down to 10 games from each year, and this one, 2003, I'm having a
Yeah,
hard
good luck
time
with that.
narrowing things down. So Jack 2 was one that so Jack and Daxter, the sequel to that one. They had a Ratchet and Clank Going Commando that year. Um, yeah, Neverwinter Nights, Hordes of the Underdark, and Shadows of the Undrentide. Both of those expansions came out that year. Um, let's see here. What else did I see? They had some Mega Man games that come out that year as well. Uh,
Oh yeah, I think it was like Battle Network 4 and man, I don't
let's
remember.
see. It was Metal Man, Battle Chip Challenge, Battle Network 4, and Network Transmission.
Oh,
Transmission.
Network Transmission. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think that was the
and
game.
then X7 and Zero 2 also came out that year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I still can't remember if X6 or X7 is the one that everyone just hates.
I think 7 was the
Is it
one.
7?
I think it's 7. But yeah, let's see what else. There was some other games, Onimusha Tactics,
Mm.
and Blade Warriors, Shining Soul 2, SimCity 4, and SimCity 4 Rush Hour, The Simpsons Hit and Run and Bustin' Out, SNK versus Capcom, uh, in one of those crossover
Mhm.
fighting games. Not as good as Marvel versus Capcom. But, let's see, several Star Wars games: Galaxies, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy, Rogue Squadron 3, Rebel Strike, Flight of the Falcon, and Knights of the Old Republic. That one's a major game to get would to go in the public domain. Um, Super Mario Advance 4, Super Mario Brothers 3. But Super Mario Brothers 3 is already in the public domain. Why do we need that? Tales of Symphonia, um, Tron 2.0, Tropico 2 Pirate Cove, and then another Yes game, Arc of the Napistem, and X-Men 2 or X2 Wolverine's Revenge, which I believe everybody said was a pretty good Wolverine game. And then the expansion to Warcraft 3, Frozen Throne. That's another big game to go into the public domain. So, but yeah, definitely lots of them. Unreal 2. Yep, that's another one. And Vex with 2 X's.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man,
And there was a Leisure
a
Suit
Leisure Suit
Larry
Larry
game.
game. One of them was in
Yeah,
there too. Yeah.
yeah. But yeah, but yeah, still tons and tons of games, and like I said, there's never been a time where games have been in the public domain or been under threat of going into the public domain. And I say threat just in the sense that these major companies consider it a
They see
threat.
it as a threat,
Um,
sure.
but you know, all of these games that we rattled off, you know, what is 1989 plus 95? Let me pull up my calculator here.
A lot.
Yeah, calculator. Okay, but 1989 plus 95, 2084.
I'll be dead.
So yeah, most of us
Probably.
will be dead by the time that these games enter the public domain. In 2003 plus 95, that's 2090,
7, 8,
97 or 98.
95?
Yeah,
95, right? 95 years, you said?
2003
It's 98.
plus 95. Yeah, that's 2098. Again, we're all going to be dead by the time these games go into the public domain. And at that point, are these games even going to still be around? We're already having problems with uh, archiving these games. You know,
Because we're,
cartridges
because we're,
corrode,
and we're losing the
discs
mediums that
corrode.
can actually play them.
Yeah, we're the number of
Media.
Nintendo systems and SNES systems that are still operational are going down. We're losing them year after year. We're doing pretty good at creating third party solutions, but a lot of the game, some games still don't work well with emulators or these third party systems, and with the PlayStation 1 and the PlayStation 2, we're completely screwed there. It's like nobody has even started making third-party PlayStation 1s or
Yeah.
even Sega Saturns. So yeah, we're reaching a point where the pace of these games creation is outstripping our ability to preserve them and let modern people play them. And yeah, we're by the time the games go into the public domain, nobody's going to care, because by that time people are going to be playing games in holodecks, and it's like, who wants to play an old PlayStation 1 title when they could be living in a real life player ready one virtual reality world.
Yeah. Well, we started an hour late. We've gone an hour over. Codename Z just dropped by. Hi, buddy.
Hi.
So let's end the podcast now.
Yeah.
Next week, we have a special show for you. If y'all remember the Kunkel Awards, which award excellence in game journalism. These were started by Michael Koretsky, who longtime game politics readers may remember as the guy from the SPJ who did the that airplay event back in
Yeah.
2015, I think.
Yeah, I think
Fall of
that was the
20.
last year game
Yeah,
politics was up.
yeah. He started the Kunkel Awards that year, and they've gone for 2 years. Well, the reins for the Kunkel Awards have been passed to Brittany Friendy, and so she's going to take that bull by the horns and steer it in new directions. And so I invited her to be on the show next week. So she'll be here to talk about the Kunkel Awards and what's changing, what's staying the same, how they work, where she sees the whole thing going in the future. So that should be a fun chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, Codename, I know you're on the other side of the world. It's okay. Um, I wouldn't be up at 7 a.m. period. I know usually you have to watch it like 4. Um, what was I talking about? So anyway, Brittany's going to be on our show next week, and so if you have any questions for her about the Kunkel Awards, make sure you're here for the show next week.
Yeah.
And beyond that, let's plug our stuff and be out of here. Andrew Eisen, Eisen is the last name. Plug it into YouTube. You'll find my videos, but not Andrew Eats an Orange because I removed it and re-uploaded it, and I'm waiting for YouTube to take the advertiser flag off of it.
Yeah.
So you should see that in the near future. I'm going to be recording a Santa Was Good to Me video talking about what I got for Christmas. People really seem to like those videos for some reason. I'll be doing a debut review for Stranger Things in the next week. I've got a lot. I just came back from vacation, so I have a lot of stuff to catch up on. So I may not get any of that actually done this weekend. I'll try to get at least something done by next weekend.
Yeah.
And yeah, those are my near future videos. So you can also follow me on Twitter at Andrew Eisen. I don't always post pictures of kitties, but I did today. I also posted a picture of myself looking really terrible and disheveled, so there, there's an impetus to follow me on Twitter. Zachary, plug away.
All right. You can follow me on Twitter at Easy Night. I talk about video games, politics, and other things that interest me. You can also follow my game development work at DK_gaming on Twitter and DivineKnightGaming.com. And this year, I actually plan on doing the 1 game a month challenge again. I did that back in 2014. I managed to make 6 games in the year, but I really want to
That's
do.
actually not too bad.
Yeah, it was great. I made some really fun games that I thought, nothing that I felt was worth charging anybody for. But this year I actually want to do a full 12 games this year, and they're not going to be big games, but they're all going to be in the same genre of a top-down action adventure game like the original Zeldas. Um, because those are the kind of games that I'm currently wanting to work on, and so I figured I'd make 12 little games in that style and see how that goes. Um, and so yeah, if you want to support that, you can support me on Patreon at Easy Night, where you'll get early access to the games once they're done. Um, and you also get to see some of the work in progress stuff. Outside of that, I do plan on doing a little bit better writing at okgamedev.com and at okgamedevs on Twitter and on Random Tower. What I want to do is get one article for one of those 2 sites written each week. That way, if not too many games are released in Oklahoma, or not too much is going on, I have Random Tower that I can write something for. And so basically I'll be writing game reviews for various stuff that I play. That's something I want to try to get back into, because I kind of fell out of that this year. But outside of that, I'm going to be working on my writing prompts and stuff as well. So
All right. Well,
there
that's
you go.
it for us. Zachary's going to bed. I'm going to play
Yeah.
video games. Codename Z is going to work. And we'll see you next week. We'll have a guest to talk about the Kunkel Awards. So I hope you'll tune in for that. Until then, friends, have a happy new year, and we'll see you next week.
All
Bye
right. We'll
bye.
see you.